All right. Good morning, everyone. We will bring to order the meeting of the Western Regional Water Commission for Thursday, June 20, 2024, 9 a.m. And I just want to, again, welcome everyone. Madam Clerk, if we could do a roll call.
Clara Andriola. Christopher Dare. Susan Severt.
Here.
Paul Anderson.
Here.
Naomi Durr.
Here.
Mary Luz Garcia. Jenny Breckus.
Here.
Alexis Hill.
Here.
Miguel Martinez. We have a quorum.
All right, thank you so much. And then we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and I guess maybe I'll call on Trina Magoon, if you could lead us. Thanks. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All righty. And then we'll open up for public comment. And Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment? Okay, and what about online? Okay, and could you tell us, I believe our attorney is attending online, is that correct?
Yes, Lucas is attending on Zoom, and I have a statement I need to read.
Okay, please do.
Okay. For telephone participation, dial 1-719-359-4580 and enter the meeting ID 840-7605-9942, followed by pound. Please mute and unmute phones by dialing *6. To sign up for public comment in person, complete a public comment card and submit it to the clerk. In the Zoom platform, raise your virtual hand icon. If attending by phone, dial *9 to notify the clerk. Note that dialing *9 both raises and lowers the virtual hand.
Okay, thank you. And then given all that, again, we still don't have any public comment. Okay, here or on Zoom. All right, well, the next thing I'm looking for is a motion to approve the agenda. All right, we've got a motion from Ms. Andriola.
Second.
Second from Ms. Hill. It says for possible action. I get a little confused with these agendas, the county versus the city. Do we have to take public comments since it's for action? That's an attorney question.
As long as we do it at the beginning of the meeting and at the end.
Excuse me, I did not hear you.
Yes, I have to take public comment on individual action item. You take public comment at the beginning of which you have.
Well, that's pretty rough, but I think I heard yes. And so is there any public comment on our approval of the agenda? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. All right, motion passes unanimously. Next item, we are going to look at approval of the minutes. And before I take a motion, since it's for possible action, let me ask if there's any public comment on the minutes. All right, seeing none, I'm looking for a motion on approval of the minutes, item 5. All right, Mr. Anderson.
Second.
All right, Ms. Hill. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. All right, we're on to item 6. I'm very excited to see Dr. Krishna Pagila. Do you want to come up, or Kim, did you want to introduce this item?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to introduce Dr. Pagila. Dr. Pagila is the chair of the Civil and Environmental Engineering Program Department at the University of Nevada, Reno. He's also the director of the Nevada Water Innovation Institute. We have 2 agreements with the Nevada Water Innovation Institute at UNR to assist us with continued coordination on regional water planning, specifically for the One Water Nevada effort, the Advanced Purified Water projects. We also have another agreement with them for them to assist the water reclamation facilities with developing and implementing enhanced source control for that that type of planning as well. So it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Pagilla and Dr. Laura Hawk, who's also a research scientist at UNR. And with that, Dr. Pagilla.
I think it is, but give it a shot. And welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. We are happy to report on Nevada Water Innovation Institute activities and outcomes. What I'll do is I'll go briefly some historical perspective over the last 6 years. There are many members of the commission who are new to the commission who haven't been informed about some of the things that we've done in the past. So if I could use this. If you remember, some of you were on the commission or involved. We started Nevada Water Innovation Institute way back in 2017. Prior to that, we had a project funded by the Western Regional Water Commission to look at the feasibility of potable reuse of reclaimed water. And that's what really got the entire team together, where the regional partners, including the two cities, the county, Tamwa, and of course, Western Regional Water Commission. We discussed, that's the first figure you see. In fact, Dr. Teal, who is here in the audience, is there in the red sweater, and Laura Hawk. It's at UNR brainstorming whether we should have a platform for regional entities as well as the university to work on things of common interest and benefit. And that's how it started, and we inaugurated the campus. At the time, we called it Nevada Water Innovation Campus. And Chair Dior, you were one of the speakers at that time, and that was founded. And then we had, and you see the photo on the right side is the photo. I think you are on the right side of the figure. You know, you got cut off here on the front row. You can see many of the leaders at the time, as well as the present day, at the inauguration of the institute. And it was approved by the Board of Regents of the Nevada System of Higher Education and renamed as Nevada Water Innovation Institute in 2018. Currently, the leadership is I am the director of the institute, and Laura and Lynn Lee, who's not here, and Bayram Wahidi, who's in the audience, are basically, we are the core group along with Dr. Marchand, who's the associate director. We have a board of advisors comprising of all the 6 founders. And Mr. Martini from City of Sparks is the chair of the Board of Advisors, and Mr. Smith from the county is the vice chair. We meet once a quarter to discuss things of common interest and progress and also future plans. This is generally the timeline which I briefly mentioned, and some of you were there in 2022 when we celebrated the 5th anniversary of Nevada Water Innovation Institute, and the county has proclaimed that Nevada Water Innovation Day on October 25th. And then since then, we've been doing several things. I will talk about a couple of those things, and Laura will specifically talk about the 2 projects that we have funded by the Western Regional Water Commission, that is supporting the regional water management coordination of the several agencies, as well as also the enhanced source control project. So recently we have done several things. I'm going to briefly go over those. One of the key outcomes of all the activities that have been funded by this commission, by the member agencies, including the 2 cities in the county and Tamwa, is that we've been able to really support research and education of many, many tens of students. And I have here, in fact, a selected list of them, students who have worked on the projects, including Laura, who got her PhD on the early feasibility project. And that's been a tremendous outcome for us, both as a university and for the region, because many of these graduates are working in the industry or for your agencies as we speak. So this is the main activity that we've been able to work on for almost 7 years, and you've heard the last week's announcement of the Bureau of Reclamation grant. I know I wasn't here for that. Exciting, that $30 million grant to build the A+ program to implementation stage. So we started very early in 2016. In fact, the first project was funded by the Western Regional Water Commission, and Laura did her PhD work on that. We are looking at a triple bottom line approach to see the feasibility of A+ indirect portable reuse program, benefits and costs. That particular work was really nationally recognized with an award by the Water Environment Federation. And since then, we've been continuing, and come to the present day, the outcome is that we are continuing to support the implementation of the project at American Flat, APWF, and Reno State. This is the program that, the research that we have done from bench scale to near full scale at Reno State. We've been able to show through that work that the water that's reclaimed through advanced water purification meets all the requirements of category A+ and some more. And you see the trailers there, the picture where we had 3 trailers in series that we used to demonstrate Reno State. And I wanted to show you those one figure of technical nature, which shows the concentrations of different contaminants of concern or constituents of concern. What you see on there is color-coded bar graph, which the back end, the taller bars are the concentrations coming out of Reno State's secondary effluent, and then as you come forward, all the concentrations are either at below detection limits or well below any guidance levels. Of course, there are some indicators which show that whether the treatment processes are working or not. And then not directly funded by the commission, but through an interlocal agreement between City of Reno, City of Sparks, and Washoe County, which you represent, we have been able to do COVID monitoring. Because the Nevada Water Innovation Institute was set up and we had the capacity and the expertise to measure viruses in water, we were able to pivot that when the pandemic was declared and monitor virus concentrations of COVID-19 in the wastewater. Through that program, we've been able to inform all of the agencies, including Washoe County Health, Northern Nevada Public Health now, the prevalence of the COVID-19 virus concentrations in the wastewater and an estimate of the number of cases based on that, which was more predictive than the human testing, which would take more than 2 weeks to get the results back. A large number of students, particularly the ones you saw in the picture, worked with your agencies. You can see one is in the City of Reno staff in the down right bottom, helping the students collect samples from manholes. And Laura, in fact, was sampling every day in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic, including Thanksgiving, including Christmas, New Year's Day, and so on and so forth. So we monitored that and measured, and we are wrapping up that program now that the pandemic is over. And that funding came from the 2 cities and the Washoe County, led by City of Sparks, an interlocal agreement with the university. I'm going to turn it over to Laura Hawk, who will talk about the 2 specific efforts and some activities we have done in the recent past. Laura?
Thank you, Dr. Pagila. So on the Enhanced Source Control Monitoring Project, it's an effort that complements the Category A+ and One Water Nevada projects that Dr. Pagila just summarized. This project really just builds off of the existing programs that the cities and county have already developed to manage the pretreatment programs of discharges going into the collection systems. But what we did was work with them to identify what their needs were going forward and how we can enhance and augment their knowledge about what the different sources are, especially for pollutants that aren't yet regulated or pollutants that are regulated under drinking water regulations, but not under wastewater discharge regulations. And also to enhance the exchange of information and knowledge about what types of dischargers are present in the sewer shed collection systems and facilitate rapid more easy detection of who might be a potential discharger if a contaminant pops up as a problem for any of those sewer sheds. Then a similar or a related effort is the regional effluent management guidance. We've been working with the Western Regional Water Commission on this project for a while. Currently, what we're doing is building off of the past efforts that have put together an abundance of information and data that can be used to help the agencies to develop and examine what the the effluent management alternatives might be, and facilitating them into more of a tool that can allow for workshops and discussion around what scenarios might look like. So in this example, what we built was an ArcGIS tool that allows you to kind of quickly view what the different alternatives are, the areas that would be impacted, different information and characteristics of those alternatives, as well as reference studies for them. And we're continuing working with the commission on that project. Then with the Truckee River Watershed Symposium, we had our inaugural symposium back in April. This brought together, it highlighted research from across the university. We had researchers from almost all of the different departments in the university. The first session focused on more science and technical presentations, but then we also had interdisciplinary research, and it was attended by stakeholders from across the watershed. So we had Pyramid Lake there, we had each of the cities there, different NGOs and other organizations, as well as some of the state government officials. And so it did bring together all of these people around these research topics that impact our water quality and water resources in the region, and allowed for discussion and strengthening of connections between the researchers and the agencies and other organizations. And so the symposium was divided into two main sessions. The first was about climate change and wildfire management in the Truckee River watershed. And then the second session focused more on interdisciplinary perspectives. So we had, economics, social sciences, and other kind of softer sciences, as well as more chemistry and things like that, to highlight the diversity of research and also the numerous approaches that the university researchers take to assess and understand the types of problems that the watershed is being impacted by. Altogether, we had 55 attendees from across the different stakeholders. So that included the Nevada Water Innovation Institute partners, as well as the agencies and other organizations. Then we also hosted the Partnering for Impact event. This was back in 2023. And this brought together national leaders in water resources management, including leadership from California as well as Oregon. And it brought together attendees from consulting agencies that are doing work in these areas, as well as the regional government agencies and researchers. And this was more of a workshop style event where we had an exchange of knowledge and strategies around how to identify and assess and have more innovative approaches in addressing the challenges that are being faced by regional agencies. And then finally, we annually participate in the Smart About Water Day events hosted by the Truckee Meadows Water Authority. So this showcases, we always have our PhD students there to showcase their research projects and talk about them with interested attendees of the event. And we also go with some little demonstration set up for the K-12 engagements around how we can remove certain pollutants from water. And overall, it just helps to give us a platform to interact with the public and let them know what kind of research is being done at the university and different ways that we can address our water quality challenges. And with that, thank you.
Well, and are you done, Dr.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
We are open for questions.
Okay,
Chair.
Kim, any more for us?
Just a real quick comment. It's very valuable, and we appreciate Dr. Pagilla and Dr. Hex efforts. This is really key for us and staff and water planning agencies to have access to the academic community and the studies that they're doing at the university and how that might impact water planning agencies and how we look at different projects that we're working on. So we really appreciate those efforts and appreciate Dr. Pagilla and Dr. Happ.
Okay,
Thank
cool.
you.
Well, super impressive. Everything you've done has kind of dazzled us over, just sitting as a board. Let me just ask, I know that I personally get notice of some of these things. I don't think everything. And I just want to make sure that the entire Water Planning Commission or Regional Water Planning Commission is on your mailing list so that they all have the opportunity to attend when they can. Do you think you could help us double check on that?
Yes.
Okay, or
Commissioner.
update, we have new members, and I just want to make sure everybody's getting all the information. And so I'm sure some of them would like to attend some of these events from time
We
to
will
time.
make sure we put you on the mailing
Yeah,
list.
so there's much to comment on, but let me open it up to the board, and yes, Member Hill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Great work. Thank you so much for continuing to be a wonderful partner, and so impressed with Dr. Pagilla, you and your team, and thank you for your service to our community. I'm just curious on the Truckee River Watershed Symposium and the Partnering for Impact, what issues rose to the top? If you could just give us a quick summary so we understand.
On the, Commissioner Hill, thank you for that question. On the Truckee River Watershed Symposium, the idea was that there were a lot of researchers at UNR working on different things, from mud flows during floods that after wildfires to people looking at how soil carbon sequestration is changing with, warming of the climate and in extreme weathers as well. So it was really an opportunity for us to bring all of the folks at UNR who are working specifically on Truckee River watershed, downstream of Lake Tahoe till Pyramid Lake. And what are they doing? Why are they doing? What can be done to facilitate some of the things that impact downstream on our water resources capability here. So the idea was to have the agencies like TUMWA interact directly with the researchers. And what I heard from Nate Allen from TUMWA was that they were able to engage with a couple of those faculty members. So it's really, we are in engineering, we were more focused on the engineering projects. We wanted to broaden that. And so the breadth of information that was presented, and we were very selective in bringing speakers from the university, who are doing actual work actively right now. So it was first an intelligence gathering type of stuff. So our goal is next year we will have the same symposium, but we will also have the agencies talk about what they are doing, why they are doing, how it is benefiting or impacting the watershed, because that's our lifeline, the Truckee River watershed is. So it's really something that Western Regional Water Commission was interested in knowing who is doing what and why they are doing and how that might impact. So that was the driver for it. And I think right now we have enough information to say who is doing what, and we will continue those conversations between the stakeholders and the university folks as well.
Absolutely. We want to leverage those, that information and best practices with the funding we expend for research at this organization than TUMWA, our foundation funding, because we put a lot of funding through the foundation on the Truckee River. So looking forward to, hearing the outcomes of that to make sure we are funding the best practices for the Truckee River.
Yeah. And on the Partnering for Impact, that's something that we've been doing all along, is that bringing leadership from water organizations, in fact, across the nation, but mostly bringing leadership from out of state to tell us about best practices on what's being done elsewhere, whether it's with potable reuse or whether with watershed protection and so on and so forth. It's really that, we want to innovate, over the current practices. And that's something that we've been doing periodically, not every year because of the pandemic, but we started before the pandemic. The outcome of that is that, basically we had, for example, not this recent edition, but the previous edition, we had a large presence from Southern Nevada and allowed agencies in the north to work with Southern Nevada Water Authority and others in Clark County and so on and so forth. So it's really a partnering for impact, is that how can we really partner on issues of common interest? Yeah.
Thank you.
Perfect. Anyone else? Questions, comments? Yeah, Mr. Anderson.
First off, I just want to say thank you to you guys as well as everyone that's been a part of this project. It's just so exciting to see all the work that you put into it and see what it's resulting in. Do have one question. I'm actually not sure who is the best one to answer this one, but the information that you provided to us today, is that available on like One Water Nevada, Western Regional Water? Specifically, one of the things I thought was awesome, I'm visual. So that graph that you were showing, the success of the treatment process and how it's matching up, I mean, to me, that would answer a lot of questions for folks in just one clean sweep. But yeah, having just a brief description of it. But I wasn't sure, is this available on some site?
Yes, Commissioner, that's all public information. It's in the reports that we have presented to the Western Regional Water Commission, as well as the reports that the agencies, including TAMWA and City of Reno, have presented to NDEP for the A+ permit. So it's all public information, and some of the information is also on Water Nevada website, but more detailed information is in the Western Regional Water Commission reports.
Perfect. Well,
Yeah.
thank you very much. Well done.
Thank you.
My question is really, I know that the A+ Water seems to be your marquee project, but, and you've gone over some other projects, but what I'm not clear on is, are these other projects being led out of your organization, or are you just participating? So for example, the enhanced source control monitoring. I know that Reno does the MS4 permit, but do you have a specific project on that that's different?
That's correct, Commissioner Dior. This particular project is funded by Western Regional Water Commission.
Right.
The goal of the project is that it's not one single entity. It's that
Everyone.
all the water reclamation facilities need to have an enhanced source control
Yes.
monitoring program, and it's required by the law if you are proposing an IPR project by NDP. Is to identify in each of the sewer shed what contaminants might be coming, that we can control them at source, thereby preventing their
Right,
discharging
so
to the-
information for everybody.
Everybody.
What I love about you, and I don't always see this at either the university or DRI, is it's a very targeted, applied research. And that I love, because I felt for decades, frankly, that the university often, or DRI, focuses on things that are very far-flung. I remember when I was at the flood project, I tried to reach out to different parts of the university and DRI to get students involved in Truckee River work, flood work, geomorphology, things like that, but I really couldn't get anyone to bite. And I don't know, I know there's the hydrology program, but do you think you're one of the main integrated programs on the university that relates to this sort of science area?
Yes, we are. And that's what we are, in fact, expanding. Now we want to go beyond science, beyond STEM disciplines. So
Really?
that's why we had the Truckee River Watershed Symposium, was to understand. We had speakers from philosophy, psychology. We had speakers from, from geography, talking about what they are doing in the
Okay.
Truckee River Watershed. So we can't do everything, and we shouldn't
Right.
do everything that we don't have. We have engineering and science expertise. So that's where we are bringing those researchers to the stakeholders, including the cities, the county, and TAMWA, is to look at these people. They are working on public engagement. They are working on, other things that are of interest to you. And that was the
Okay.
goal of it. Yeah.
I didn't get that when you explained that project, so that really helps. Understand you're expanding beyond STEM. I mean, that's surprising for me, and I'm pleased to hear it. On the Truckee River watershed, are you, I have to imagine you are working with the One Water, for the Truckee?
That's correct. That's correct. We basically are working on the One Water Nevada program, but we are embedded into that particular program. So the idea of Truckee River Watershed is that,
Okay.
what else is, I mean, we do a lot of the stuff in the urban ecosystem. We want to know what else is happening upstream.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Any other follow-up questions from anyone? All right. Well, fascinating. Thank you for coming. We should
Thank you.
do this
Thank you
annually,
very
probably
much.
get an update on what you're doing, and very, very helpful.
We'll be happy to come back.
Yeah,
Great.
seriously.
Thank
Okay. I don't think we have any action on this item, so I'll just, we're not going to take public comment, but thank you again. Closing out that item 6, and we're moving on to item 7, which is about One Water Nevada STEM Education Program. So,
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kim Rigdon for the record. Members of the commission, I think I presented this at our last meeting, but we have an agreement with the Sierra Nevada Journeys organization for them to develop STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and math. And I have Miss Audrey Bergman here, who is the advancement manager for Sierra Nevada Journeys, and she is going to give us a presentation on the curriculum and where they've presented the events that they've participated in.
perfect.
Ms. Bergman?
Okay.
This is this what I used for the Twin Falls? Okay, great, thank you. All right, so my name is Audrey Bergman. I am the advancement manager at Sierra Nevada Journeys. Normally Sean Hill would be here, but he's on PTO this week. But you can certainly, direct any additional questions to him, and his contact
All
info
right.
is
Well,
posted.
welcome, Audrey.
Thank you. Oh. Okay, so I'm going to start with a little bit of background on kind of who we are and why we are here and what our purpose is as an organization. Sierra Nevada Journeys focuses on science and outdoor education, and there's a real need for that in Nevada specifically. Data shows that the teachers really don't spend a whole lot of time on science education in the classroom, less than 3 hours a week on average, and that doesn't necessarily include environmental education or watershed education, and it's often under-resourced and it's often an afterthought. And so with Sierra Nevada Journeys, we're really trying to push into classrooms, push into non-traditional education spaces, and bring that hands-on science to students directly, and connect it to the environment and to the local watershed. Also, children are in front of screens 15 times longer than they play outdoors these days. And so as environmental educators, that's a big concern for us. How do you grow the next generation of environmental stewards if they are not outside, if they are not engaged with nature? And so that's kind of the other part of our mission. And so it brings us to our mission statement, which is to deliver innovative outdoor science-based education programs for youth to develop critical thinking skills and to inspire natural resource stewardship. And I would just add to that in addition to that mission, our goal is to reach all students regardless of financial barriers, regardless of need. And so that's where a lot of our fundraising goes, is to make sure that we don't have to say no to any schools, so that we can reach all students in our community. And so we address these needs through a variety of core programs. The first and probably most widespread in our community is Classrooms Unleashed. This is a grade level specific curriculum that we deliver to classrooms in the region. So we push into classrooms, we teach one science lesson that is standards aligned, and then we take those kids on a field day to a local nature site where they engage with the same science concept, but in an environmental, in nature. And so they act as environmental scientists in that context. So one example is our third grade program. We talk about animal habitats and animal adaptations, which is a third grade standard, but then we take students to Oxbow Nature Study Area where they actually gather evidence and look for, try to come to a conclusion as to why deer populations in Nevada are declining. We also, we own a camp in Portola, California, called Grizzly Creek Ranch, where we take a lot of mostly 5th through 8th grade students for overnight programs with their classrooms. And this is an immersive, multi-day science and outdoor education program. We partner with after-school programs and community partners such as the Boys and Girls Club to deliver like hands-on science enrichment where we're trying to build science confidence. And whenever possible, we incorporate field trips to local nature sites with that program as well. And then finally, we have Family STEM Nights, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more in just a moment. So we're really proud of the impact that we've had over the last couple of years. Just last year alone, we served over 32,000 students, and that's across all regions, so that includes California students as well. But 56% of students came from low-income communities, 61% were students of color, and 10% were living with a disability. And so we're really proud of that statistic. We really try to intentionally include, diverse students and diverse under-resourced schools. And then this statistic is a couple years old, but we're really proud of it. We did a study a few years ago where we looked at, performance on standardized tests for students who had participated in our programs, and we found that 6% more students score at the proficient level on state science exams at schools where our programs were delivered. And this is really huge considering that with a lot of our programs, some of our programs are really only a few hours that we spend with students over the course of their entire school year. And yet we see a pretty significant impact. Going back to Family STEM Nights, which is where we focused our energy for this particular project. Family STEM Nights are a 2-hour event. We invite the whole family, siblings are welcome. They're held at schools and they take place, there's 2 parts. There's STEM exploration stations where families and students move between various stations and explore different concepts. And then there's a whole family design challenge where everyone works together and competes to do something, form the tallest tower with limited resources or design a car that can be powered only by wind. And it's really fun. We hold up to 50 events annually. We see, historically, we've seen on average about 150 attendants at each of these events. And they're just a fun way for schools to get families involved in science and build confidence and connections to various career paths. So with this particular project, we have been developing a number of water conservation themed stations to incorporate into our family STEM night programs. And we designed this curriculum in conjunction with the Western Regional Water Commission and TUMWA. We, this year, focused primarily on station design and pilot programs. So we worked really hard with our education team to come up with these stations, test them out, and then we piloted them at a variety of schools and have kind of gathered feedback and discussed options for improvement. And so this is kind of a brief summary of the work that's completed and the different people that were working on these parts of the project. But, we held planning meetings and did curriculum design. And then, early spring was basically just testing these programs out at various sites. And there's kind of a overview of the various stations that we designed. And I have some pictures and information on those in just a second. So we served a variety of schools. Attendance was lower than we would expect, and we have some theories. A lot of the schools are moving towards hosting these events directly after school instead of in the evenings, and so that's tough for working families. And so it's something we're troubleshooting and communicating with schools about in terms of the success of these programs. So this is an overview of the specific stations that we developed with this project. The first was one called No Such Thing as No Water. This was basically an aquifer model, and so for students to gain an understanding of how aquifers are managed and how, in this model, they were extracting water more quickly than it could be replenished naturally, and so kind of building an understanding of limited resources. The second station was looking at water resources, but at the household level. And so giving students a limited amount of water to work with, how did they allocate that for various chores? And so they had to think really critically about compromises that need to be made or, trade-offs that you have when you are working with a limited set of resources. And then what changes can you make, in your household in order to conserve water? The third station was a little more broad, looking at bigger concepts of water conservation, like desalination, rain harvesting, treated wastewater. These were big concepts for little kids, but important to wrestle with and important to introduce people to. And then our final station was a water filtration station. So students designed their own filters and understand kind of the process and the steps of water filtration. So The pilot is going really well. We had a lot of fun testing the stations this spring. We do have some ideas for improving some of the stations. Our educators have mentioned that the stations that include water are very messy. And this is, going to be the case, I think. They've suggested we may play around with replacing beans with water in one of them, but I think we'll probably ultimately stay with water just because that's what we're looking at here and we want it to be authentic. And so kind of working with our educators to make sure that we have systems that work for them as well. But we need a better groundwater model. The groundwater model has been breaking, and so we're working on redesigning that. Some of the concepts are just a little too big for the little guys. I mean, our Family STEM nights primarily focus on elementary school age students, and so when you're combining things like desalination and rainwater harvest, it's a lot. It's too much. So we're kind of scaling that one back and thinking how to make that more digestible for our audience. And then, I think those are the big things. And our staff is really excited to kind of delve into that this summer. They're going to be working on redesigning those stations, testing those internally, and then we'll be rolling out the redesigned stations in the fall of 2024. And then those stations that are really successful, they'll be part of our Family STEM Night program in perpetuity, which is really exciting. So we'll be, reaching students for years with some of these concepts. And so I think that's all I have presentation-wise, but I'm open to trying to answer some questions if
All
there
right.
are any.
Thank you so much, Audrey. Really very exciting. I mean, to have this level of STEM education and so integrated and at so many schools. I mean, I don't even know how you're doing it. I mean, how many staff do you have working on this program?
We have a number of, I don't know how many educators we have at this point. I think between full and part-time education staff, it's something like 10 or so
Okay.
on staff, yeah.
And then you mentioned, I think, the groundwater model was breaking. What's
Yeah.
that about?
I don't know. I haven't interacted with it directly, but there was some issue with a pump or something. And so
Okay.
it's just a matter of
And
troubleshooting
then
that.
one final question for me. I didn't hear you mention Project WET at all. And so are you integrated with that, or do you even know what that is?
I don't know how everything interacts. I know we're part of the One Water project.
Yeah, so Project WET is water education for teachers.
Okay.
But the program's focused on educating teachers. It's centered in the Nevada Division of Environmental Protection now. They have a groundwater model, they have a surface water model at this point, I think. And they have a whole book. And the book has lots and lots of STEM exercises for all grade levels, and it's a statewide program. So I would encourage you all to see if they're, reach out to them and see if they have extra models, to see if their book can get integrated into your exercises, those kind of things. No need to reinvent the wheel, but it looks like a great partnership could be had there, since
Thank
you are really moving the needle on this. Let me ask any,
Yeah.
Thank you. Ms. Breckus?
Thank you for letting me ask a question. Last fall, Mr. Hill reached out to me about security concerns at Oxbow, which I've shared for a number of years. Did you, and he said you all were going to pull off of Oxbow. Did you go back to Oxbow in the spring? Do
My
you know?
understanding is that we're still at that site, so I don't know if conditions
Okay.
have improved.
Yeah,
But that would be a
yeah.
question for Sean and our
Okay,
program staff. But
okay.
I'm happy to pass that on.
Yeah, I did. Our city manager never got back to me about, the concerns, and they go back. I mean, I think even Nevada Wildlife had some closed down because concerns, but I suggested to him maybe look at the school district, escorts there. But, yeah, that'd be great. I think they pulled out maybe for the fall, so maybe they went back for the spring. But, yeah, I'll see him and we can
Yeah.
chat.
I know we ran a number of third grade programs, and I think they were still at Oxbow this spring,
Okay,
but I'm not
okay.
on programs
Thank you.
anymore, so.
And then, maybe this is a Kim question, but do we have, or how much do we have direct funding with these folks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kim Regan for the record. Their agreement is $50,000 a
50.
year.
Okay, and do you also get money from the Truckee River Fund, I think?
We do,
Yeah,
to support different programs, but yeah.
okay, not these some other programs?
It's mostly, so with the Truckee River Fund, we're mostly doing our Classrooms Unleashed program, which
What was it?
Classrooms Unleashed, which is our.
Unleashed?
Right, so that's a different, a different program that we run. It's similar, but more classroom-based, and that's where the field trips come in.
Gotcha, okay, all right. So 50,000, and how long have we been doing that?
We renew it annually. This is the first year that they've completed to develop the curriculum, and so next year we'll be funding their improvements that they're going to make to the curriculum, and then the schools that they'll be attending and providing the curriculum to.
Okay, all right. And yes, Mr. Anderson?
How does a school get on your list to be able to enjoy the program that you have?
We do a lot of outreach. So we really proactively reach out to schools in the district. We also have schools that we partner with year after year, so we'll reach out to us to schedule. But yeah, I mean, we're willing to partner with anyone, within a reasonable driving distance. And I think we even hit some of the rural areas surrounding Reno as well.
So you proactively reach out to schools?
Yeah, we
And
send
then
out,
likewise, if they want to reach out to you, they can do that also?
Yes, yeah, it goes both ways, but I know we send out emails to schools in the district and try to,
Awesome, thank
Yeah.
you.
Great, anyone else? No one? All right, well, amazing. Though maybe when you come back next time, especially if it's in the summer, maybe bring a kid or two that may have participated in your program. I'd love to hear from them.
Sure.
See what they've learned, or maybe they'll talk to us about one of the projects. It would be really, a different perspective.
That's cool, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
just
at the
an
very
idea.
least, we can incorporate some anecdotes and,
Yeah.
feedback from
Yeah,
students.
well, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we'll close out that item, and I think we're on to item 8, which is this presentation on per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, or PFAS regulations. Kim?
Thank you,
And
Madam.
also Scott Greco with Jacobs.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kim Rigdon for the record. Members of the commission, we have an agreement with Jacobs Engineering funded through the WRWC Regional Water Management Fund to provide updates to the board on PFAS regulations. And during our May meeting, we had a request to provide that update, so we brought in Jacobs, Scott Greco, excuse me. He's here to give a presentation on the updated regulations and answer questions.
Okay, cool. All right.
Scott, take it away.
Thank you. Yes, let me just share my screen here. And we can get going. Is that visible?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Thanks, Kim and Madam Chair and members of the commission. Today I'll be providing a brief update regarding the PFAS regulations and those related to basically from the US EPA. EPA developed a roadmap back in 2021 that identified a number of priorities and actions planned through this year through 2024. And I'll provide a brief update on these activities. Overall, these are a summary of the utility-focused activities and actions identified in that strategic plan. I would like to emphasize that all of these are national EPA actions, not related to state or local efforts. Some of these have more detail, which I'll present through subsequent slides, and others are underway and details are available through the EPA website. The regulations for drinking water, which I think everybody is keenly aware of, those are in place. I'll talk more about that in the coming slides. From a wastewater perspective, since the EPA has indicated that drinking water rules are set, their current focus is wastewater and biosolids. Under wastewater, one key action I'd like to highlight is the focus on a national wastewater sampling program that'll be starting this year for the nation's 400 largest utilities in order to establish a baseline data for PFAS in publicly owned treatment works. Under the environmental media, treatment residuals, and biosolids, the EPA has recently finalized rules under CERCLA, which I'll discuss, and they've proposed a designation under RCRA to solid materials or waste type programs. And it does anticipate issuing biosolids risk assessment at the end of this year. And lastly, EPA has issued draft ambient water quality criteria for aquatic life. These, to clarify, are values that are protective of aquatic organisms, fish, and other permanent residents in water, which are consistently contacted with water. So I just want to emphasize that these aquatic ambient life criteria are not related or applicable to incidental contact by wildlife or domesticated land-dwelling animals, specifically to aquatic life. I'd like to talk about the U.S. drinking water maximum contaminant levels, or MCLs. So the basis of the drinking water regulations, these MCLs, the standards in the rule are set to reduce PFAS to the lowest levels that are feasible for effective implementation. From a timing standpoint, EPA understands that the final rule will take time to plan and construct the treatment systems or take other actions to comply. So that is why the rule allows systems and utilities the flexibility of time to determine the best solutions for their community. From a regulatory standpoint, the basis of the regulations, the calculations by EPA, assumes that 80% of an individual's exposure to PFAS is not actually from drinking water. So the basis of these regulations and values assume that the majority of an individual's exposure are through other environmental contributions, such as textiles, carpeting and clothing treatment processes, or clothing treatments, personal care products, and food contact surfaces as examples. And these are not short-term exposure values, but the calculations are based on a lifetime exposure. So what are the final regulations, the numerical MCL values? The EPA published these final drinking water maximum contaminant levels. These are individual values for 5 specific PFAS, PFOA, PFOS, PFHXS, PFNA, and a compound called HFPO dimer acid, or HFPODA. You may have commonly heard that referred to as Gen X. All these values are in nanograms per liter, or parts per trillion concentrations. Also added to the numerical value is a criterion called the hazard index, or HI. If a particular drinking water contains 2 or more of the 4 listed PFAS, then the HI can be calculated using the math shown below the table there. If the calculated value with that math exceeds 1, then the MCL is in violation. So what does the regulatory schedule look like? The drinking water rule actually becomes effective next week on June 25th. So within 3 years of that date, or June 2027, water utilities are required to complete the initial monitoring, which is defined as a minimum of 4 quarterly samples at each system entry point to distribution. A utility can submit previously collected data subsequent to January 2019 if it was collected for the EPA under the uncontaminated monitoring program, or if it was requested by the state and or meets other certifications, like it's validated data through a qualified lab. Beginning in June 2027, the utility must commence with compliance sampling, which consists of quarterly sampling at each entry point to distribution. At this point, if it's not previously included, the utility must include the results of the compliance monitoring for PFAS in its annual Consumer Confidence Report, or CCR. Also, if any of the PFAS values exceed the MCL values during that time period, the utility must issue a notification of exceedance to the public. But from a violation and compliance standpoint, that doesn't actually start until June 2029. If PFAS are found in the finished water above the MCL values after this date, the utility must have implemented supply of an alternative water source or installed treatment on the existing water supply to be in compliance. So how is the EPA determining compliance? Well, when determining compliance, quarterly samples, as I mentioned earlier, are used to calculate what's called a rolling annual average. This is real similar to how the arsenic compliance is currently determined, if you're familiar with the arsenic approach. So the EPA has provided this rolling annual average approach, as well as some specifics on how the values are calculated, to allow some results to exceed 4 nanograms per liter, for example, for PFOA, with single measurements, but still, if the overall annual average is below the MCL, the utility's in compliance. So in the words of the EPA, there's a buffer built in determining compliance with the MCL, supporting the focus on the long-term lifetime exposure aspect. This graph here to the right shows an example data set that I've prepared for example purposes. Is a set of quarterly samples for PFOA, which the utility started its quarterly sampling in January 2025. The data provide an example of how the measured PFOA concentrations fluctuate over time, which is represented in those blue bars. You can see some are over the value and some are below the value. For each of those quarters, oops, I'm sorry.
And Mr. Greco, while you're doing that, just a note, we're going to need to wrap up pretty quick because we have a meeting following us, so.
Okay,
If you
sounds
wanna-
good. Yes. For each of those quarters, the green bars indicate the values which are used for calculation purposes. This is important because the EPA has provided instructions where anything below the minimum reporting level in the case of PFOA, that's 4, is calculated as 0. So in this example, you can see the rolling annual average calculation would start in October 2025 when 4 quarters of data are available. And you can see from this example, even though some values exceed and some values do not exceed on an individual quarter basis, the rolling annual average never exceeds the MCL, and this utility would be in compliance 100% of the time. Just want to touch briefly on CERCLA. The regulations that could impact water and wastewater utilities regarding residuals management, I'd like to emphasize that there's no means for utilities to really control PFAS entering the sewer or the environment from these residential sources, which is the concern of these regulations from utilities across the United States. CERCLA would focus PFOA and PFOS, 2 of the PFAS compounds, to be regulated as hazardous substances. This is really to drive environmental cleanup compensation. EPA has indicated it's not its intention to target utilities, but this could impact residuals management if utilities are not exempt from the regulation. I do want to emphasize this does not designate PFAS as hazardous waste. There is a difference in terminology between hazardous waste and hazardous substances. RCRA is a proposed rule for 9 PFAS. It's very similar in the fact that it's only focused for hazard constituents, which means that it would really just be considered for RCRA facility assessments, RCRA cleanup, and really would largely not impact utilities. And again, this does not designate PFAS as hazardous waste. And lastly, I just want to reemphasize that the CERCLA enforcement discretion policy, EPA decisions are made on a site-by-site basis. They're not focusing on, they want to focus on holding responsible those who've significantly contributed to the release of PFAS to the environment, mainly industries, and not focus on utilities. But what EPA is saying is that they don't intend to pursue entities such as community water systems, publicly owned treatment works, and the such is listed there. So that concludes the update. Thank you for the time. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Well, thank you so much. That was probably a deeper dive than I expected, but really appreciate, sounds like lots happening. Just one quick question from me, and that is anything more focused on our local situation? I mean, have we done any more monitoring here, or either for you or for Ms. Rigdon?
I brought the directors from the different regional water planning agencies for specific questions for those regions. So is there a specific region we're focused on?
Well, I just didn't know where we are locally. I mean, when we say region, I don't know how we're divided up, or do you mean within Reno, within Sparks, within Washoe County? We're all doing it separately, or do you want
No.
to speak, Ms. Magoon?
Yeah.
Good morning, Trina Magoon, Director of Utility Services. So we have Tumwa here to speak to the drinking water side. I think as Scott noted, that aside from the drinking water side, which we do have regulatory requirements now, it's an evolving regulatory environment for wastewater treatment plants and/or water quality, surface water quality. So the EPA issued aquatic life for ambient water quality is a recent draft. We actually haven't had time to dive into that or communicate with Scott on what that might mean. He might have a better answer for that. So, we are working with our regulator to understand where we are. There's, 40,000 components of PFAS, so understanding which ones are important to which body of water or treatment plant or that type of thing. So we are working on those as we move forward. We do, on the wastewater treatment plant side, we do have our enhanced source control plans that Dr. Pagia had mentioned earlier. So we are working in compliance with the wastewater directive issue.
Well, on that note, if I may interrupt, are you saying that we would do a treatment at the site to reduce PFAS-type components going into the river?
We are not at this point. We're not there yet. Where we are is identifying those facilities that may be contributing, aside from the 80% contribution from general household that's coming through. And as Scott mentioned, a lot of this is they're not looking to hold or require a wastewater treatment plant yet to clean that up. It's really just at this point trying to understand what do we have. And from previous conversations with Scott, my understanding is that our wastewater treatment plants here locally are on par with wastewater treatment plants across the United States. We're not specifically higher or have a different situation than many other communities that are facing this across the U.S. and world, as he noted.
Okay. Well, let me quickly ask the board. Yeah, Ms. Breckus?
Yeah, thanks for letting me jump in. We're a policy board, and my question's for Kim, Ms. Rigdon, but it's, not today, you belong to associations, I presume, some, ones. I always want to know what our staff is doing in terms of the membership that they have in these organizations and what positions those organizations are taking. Because, and same goes for Mr. Zimmerman, I think it's important to report to the board, we're a partner of this group that, are they lobbying Congress to preempt this rulemaking? I think that's information we need to know, is where you're all at in your partnership. And, if it raises to a role that maybe the board wants to have a discussion on, we take it to the table and we decide if we want you to be involved in that. I think that's where we come in, and I think it's where we come in at this point on this issue, because it is so much at hand and movement. So I would like a report on the groups you belong to, how they've commented on the rule or other things, and even copies of their correspondence. Thank you.
Yeah. I think that's a good point, because just as we have a legislative committee to interact with our state legislation, if these associations are interacting at a federal level to impact the federal regulations, that's important to know too, especially if our staff are involved and saying something. So anyone else have any comments on this topic? All right, well, thank you so much, Scott, for your presentation, and our team here locally for staying on top of it. I mean, thank you. It's a very emerging, important issue. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I know we're out of time, and so let me ask Kim, how would you like us to proceed? Do you want to still give a program manager's report? You said you may not have a lot there.
I think in the interest of time, we can skip that agenda
Okay.
item.
Well, let me ask, when is our next meeting?
Our next scheduled meeting is August 21st. Well, we have calendar holding for August 21st and September 18th if needed. So
Okay.
as we make progress on some of the previously requested items, we'll determine whether
Okay.
to hold a meeting for those dates. The October 16th meeting is definitely scheduled for financial and audit review.
Okay, so you said October 21 and September 28,
September 18th.
18th, okay. And then just to be clear, do you think at this time those meetings would be 8:30 or 9? Or do you know yet?
Question. I just don't know. It depends on how many agenda items. I don't want you
Okay.
guys to get here at 8:30 if we only have
Yeah.
30 to 40 minutes of
So
agenda
just
items.
stay on top of that and send us an email, hopefully the day before, just to remind us. Even if it's exact same time, exact same place, it's just a good board communication to keep us on track.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay? And then let me ask, we'll shift to public comment, and do we have any final public comment? Nothing, and then online? Nothing online? Okay, well, we'll close out public comment. And then any final commission comments? Anyone? No? All right, any final staff comments?
No staff comments.
All right, thank you. And then I'll just declare us adjourned. Thank you so much, and then in about 5 minutes, we'll begin again with the Tamwa meeting.